All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another WNBA regular season video. In this video, we're going to talk about all the playoff teams because all the playoff teams have been set. These are the 8 teams that will be in the playoffs. We don't know the seeding quite yet. We have to wait a couple more games for that, but I do want to talk about all of these teams, talk about maybe some moves they've made, maybe some things that have unfortunately happened to them, teams trending in the right direction, in the wrong direction. So if you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment it down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. So I just hit record, and I didn't really think how I was going to formulate this video. So I guess we'll go from the 8 seed to the 1 seed, which is the bottom right, the New York Liberty. We can talk about them first. They played against the Golden State Valkyries, who are the number 2 seed right now, last night, and it did not go well for them. And as I was watching this game, I had it on the background, sort of. I was doing something else while I was watching the game, and the Liberty just looked all out of whack. They didn't look great. They recently got Leone Fibic back, who was a huge part of their championship run a couple years ago now, and they have some newer pieces that feel like they've integrated very well. Obviously, the huge piece that's missing for them is Satu Sabali, who's still dealing with, I guess, like concussive, residual concussive damage, I would put it. And that sounds scary, but I assure you she's not in any danger. It's just she hasn't been playing basketball for that reason. So they are down a full roster spot, technically. And they are left with a team of, it's not a slouch of a team by any means. If I told you this roster, you would have told me at the beginning of the year, you would have said this could be a number 1 team in the league, and I would have said, maybe, I don't know, because I'm skeptical of these things. This team consists of, let's see here. I want to get all the names, just not the big names. Obviously, Brianna Stewart, John Cole Jones, Sabrina Ionescu, Marina Johannes, Hunzu. Let's see here. Leone Fibic, like we talked about. Paulina Astier, Rebecca Allen, and a bunch of other players here. Rebecca Gardner, who's okay. Let's put it this way, right? I bring up the game they played against the Valkyries last night because the Liberty just looked awful. They look like a team that the window has completely shut for them. And even though they have some really great moments against some other teams, they can't beat the Lynx. They can't beat the Valkyries. I said, I think it was before All-Star break, I would be surprised if they could beat the Mystics in a 7-game series. That's how bad they were at the beginning of the year. Then they came back from All-Star break and they looked okay, and now they've sort of reverted back. And the numbers don't really matter, right? The wins loss don't really matter. They're going to be the 7-8 seed at this point. It's inevitable. What I'm concerned about and what I'm looking for at the end of the year when I'm watching these games, especially teams against matchups that are teams against each other that are going to be in the playoffs, right? I'm looking for is there a fire in you? Is there something that is untapped? Are you like sandbagging a little bit? Are you waiting to really pounce on this team? I feel like the Liberty gave it their all. They tried their damn hardest against the Valkyries, and it just didn't work. They looked old. They looked slow. They didn't look like they had any cohesion. And, I'm going to say it because I was scrolling social media this morning, and people were like talking about this player. And I think we've been talking about it all year. And I've been talking about it for the last 2 years now. Sabrina Ionescu, who is the draft pick that restarted this whole era of New York Liberty basketball. She doesn't look like herself. She is too inconsistent now. Maybe the last time we talked about the WNBA in this sort of format where we did a little check-in and we talked about some teams. I was very high on Sabrina because she was coming off a couple good games. But the couple good games are coming too far away from a streak of bad games. And in the playoffs, that can't happen. And we saw in the one finals that they went to, this team, it was a different iteration of this team, but it was still this team with a different coach. Sabrina can have some really bad stinkers for like 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, she can show up. But This is the sort of team that can't do that anymore. They need to show up every quarter and play every minute, tooth and nail. And Valkyries looked so, and the Valkyries are one of the best like rated defenses in the WNBA. They might be the best rated defense in the WNBA. People are saying they're one of the best defensive teams of all time. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to say that yet, but who knows? Those people could be on the early, bandwagon to that, and I'll hop on afterwards. But this could just be a bad matchup for the Liberty. Um, but it felt like, and I have to equate everything to this because I'm a Warriors fan in the NBA. It felt like one of these Warriors teams when like they still had all the big names. They had Clay, they had Draymond, they had Steph, and the other people around them were okay enough. But you just knew at the end of the day, this team wasn't going to the conference finals. They weren't going to um, the NBA or the WNBA finals. You knew that wasn't going to happen. And I've been monitoring like New York Liberty like social media a little bit and their fans and seeing the ups and downs of their roller coaster. Right, it's been an up and down roller coaster for them. I think at times they're very optimistic about this team, and then other times you get beat down like this against the number two team, who this is their second year of inception. Um, the coach beautifully. They have all these pieces, even though they have their struggles. The Valkyries do on the offensive end. Last night I was going for them. They made the Liberty look lost. Made them look like a second-rate team, like a college team almost. And I think Liberty fans are most concerned of all that the big three isn't going to work anymore. I think that's where we're at in this cycle of like emotions, where Liberty fans just think this big three isn't going to work anymore. The big three of Jonquel Jones, Sabrina Ionescu, and Brianna Stewart isn't going to work anymore. It just isn't. And one of them needs to go. I've documented my issues with Jonquel Jones, and even pre All Star break, I was on where was it? New York Liberty Reddit, and they were saying Jonquel Jones is doing too many like extra things. Like she's not posting up enough. She's pulling up from three too much. When she's doing when the ball's going in the hoop, it looks great. When it doesn't, it looks awful. And they needed to be more locked in. It doesn't feel like Jonquel Jones is locked in that much on a game to game basis. And granted, it doesn't matter. And like I said, it doesn't matter. These wins and losses really don't matter. I guess they're character builder, wins or losses. Um, this team does need some character, but you could say Jonquel Jones is going to show up in the playoffs. That's not good enough. When you're the eighth seed, you should be embarrassed that you're the unless you're a young team and you're the eighth seed. You should be embarrassed. This is a team that won a championship a couple years ago, and now they're the eighth seed, and like that's not something to be proud of. That's not something to be like, yeah, we barely made it into the playoffs. That's not it. And I don't want to deep dive too much into the injuries because they have had some injuries this year, but that's been the last couple years since they've won the championship. And I said this on Liberty Reddit. I was like, I don't care what they're doing right now. I don't. They could be the number two seed. If they're not healthy come playoff time or something's wrong going into the playoffs, I don't believe in this team. This team sucks. That's just the plain old truth about it. And again, Brianna Stewart. I'm gonna have to let me see if I can look up the contract Brianna Stewart's on because I think it's longer term. I think there's 2 more years left on all their contracts. If I'm looking at this correctly. Yeah, there's a 2 more years. So Jonquel Jones and Brianna Stewart are here for 2027 and 2028. I didn't realize this. Actually, no, that's not a player option. That's just estimated. Brianna Stewart, not Brianna Stewart. Sabrina Ionescu is also here till 2028. This is a very top-heavy team. You have Satu here on like a almost $1 million deal. She hasn't played. To keeping it basketball, and I know she's injured, and I know it's like a devastating injury or whatever she has, or like it's a longer term injury than I think anybody thought it would be. She hasn't been worth that money. I if she's not gonna play basketball, I can't keep her on this team because this team is gonna go into panic mode. If they lose in the first round, this team goes into panic mode and everything gets blown up almost. And one of those sacrificial lambs might be the coach, and I think the coach has done an okay enough job given the talent that he has, given the boost in talent that the WNBA has had. It's not a cakewalk anymore, and I feel like This coach has been highly pressurized to get results. And I said when they hired him, I said, it's either you win a championship in your first year or two or you're fired. That's it. There's no wiggle room for like, oh, we'll keep you around to development. No, this is a championship now team, and if you don't win a championship, you're gone. You're going to be gone. And yeah, the Liberty are just in such a weird place, and I feel like I was so right about them since they won the championship. That championship, sorry, Liberty fans, was such a fluke. It was such a fluke, and it was never gonna happen again. And it's been trending downwards. It's been going through like the levels of hell. It's like Dante's Inferno. They just keep going further and further down until like they're at the way bottom. But yeah, that's it for the Liberty. 10 minutes on the Liberty. Wow. I'll try to get through the rest of these pretty quickly because some of these are pretty quick. Next up, the seventh seed, a young team who I had in my Biggest Losers video I guess that was a week ago now. The Dallas Wings sitting at 23-16, tied with the Wings. They're actually pretty close up there. Tied with the Wings, and this is their first playoff berth in a minute for the Wings. I don't think this team goes far. I I'm struggling to imagine this team um, having a decent run. But what am I trying to say here? This is a team that meets the criteria for what I said earlier. A young team just barely sneaking into the playoffs. Maybe their fans had higher aspirations, but the realistic people knew this is around the place where the Wings would be. Um, they have their deficiencies at the forward and the center spot. Um, Either the people they have at those positions don't play defense, Jessica Shepard, or are too young to really be relied in and game out. They have these really spectacular moments where they play really great defense or they shoot the ball very well, but it really doesn't come around that often. And in the playoffs, you need to be on all the time, and I'm just not completely sure. But the guard spots seem to be taken care of. I mean, this is going to be Arike Gumawale's first time back in the playoffs in a fat minute since she dragged this team to the playoffs many years ago. This is going to be Paige Becker's first forte into the playoffs, into this format in the WNBA, and I'm I'm optimistic about these next couple teams where like I could see them taking a couple wins off of a higher seeded team and making it tough on them. Do I think they can win a championship? Hell no. But there's time to grow for this team. It isn't do or die. You want the coach to get this experience as well because I feel like Wings fans have had a lot to say about their coach Jose Fernandez, and they're this is the time to grow, and it's going to be painful to grow. There's going to be an ugly blowout in the playoffs where you're like, oh boy, trade this person, trade that person. But it's a part of being a lower seeded team and playing against the big dogs. And for what it's worth, I think the Wings can play against the big dogs. They might not show up for like half a game, but when they do show up, it looks pretty good. And I have to put my hand up and say, when this team has it going and it's like fair and they're not like Isaiah James isn't like flopping all over the court, it's fun to watch. Um, but the other side of that, it's infuriating to watch when like um, Alana Smith has like four fouls going into halftime. Jess Shepard has three. Paige Becker's shot isn't falling. Arike's shot isn't falling. Now you don't have AZ. Um, it becomes very difficult to watch. But again, there are going to be those games where they are very good, and maybe take a game off the higher seed. Do you have any other thoughts about the Wings I haven't said already? Because I'm trying not to repeat some other stuff I've said in the past because I do want to get through this with some swiftness. I don't think so. This is just where you need to be. I think this is where this is where you want to be. You're right on schedule. There's no pressure to win a game. There's no pressure to lose it. If you get swept, yes, it's gonna be embarrassing. But what are you gonna do, right? What are you gonna do? Moving on to another team that I think could really fight and steal a couple games off a higher seeded team for sure. The Washington Mystics. I watched them play the Mercury last night. The Mercury are not a playoff team, but it was still a really entertaining game, and the Mystics showed a lot of growth. This is, I want to say, a completely different team from the beginning of the season, but this is a much improved, mentally strong team that doesn't get too down on themselves, plays their game. They don't let anybody rush them. Sometimes there's individual players rush their shots and like rush getting into their stuff. But as a team, there's a collective calmness around them, which is very rare amongst a young team. And even when they don't have it going, just one stop, one shot, I feel like just turns the page for them. And when you look at their coach, who I feel like is one of going to be one of the better coaches. I'm not sure if he's one of those coaches that's like a pure developmental coach or if he can coach this team in a playoff series and eventually, maybe 2 years now, 3 years now, to a finals. I'm not sure. It's only his second year coaching, but I think the building blocks are there for this team to be really dangerous. And if a team doesn't take them seriously, they could find themselves like in a hole, maybe down 2-1, um, early in a series, or not 2-1, 2-0 in a series. Um, it's going to be very interesting to see what this Mystics team does because they have so many pieces. They do have like some like small liabilities at the guard spot, and then maybe sometimes if the whistle isn't going the way at the center spots, because some of their centers get in foul trouble as well. But when I think about this team, I think it's just a lot of it's a lot of grit and it's a lot of grind. And there are times where they blow out really bad teams, and there are times where like just because they're young and maybe they're not taking this particular game as seriously as they should, it's a close game against a team that isn't in the playoffs, like they did last night. But yeah, I'm really optimistic about this team. They're one of my favorite teams to watch and root for. They're just so easy to root for, sitting at 24-15, at the sixth spot, only I guess one loss and one win behind the Indiana Fever. So yeah, I really like this Mystics team. This is the first team I'm like I like. I want to watch them in the playoffs. I need to see this. Um, Next up, the Indiana Fever. After quite a crazy couple 2 months, month and a half of just talking about the Fever and everybody like being on their case about this or that. I feel like that sort of slowed down. We've gone into a mode where we just haven't talked about them for a little bit, and I'm not going to talk about them that much. Um, what are they? 25-14. This is about where I think I had them when I thought about them at the beginning of the season. I was like, well, they're not going to be better than the Aces. They're not going to be better than the Valkyries. They're not going to be better than the Lynx. I thought maybe they could be. How far are they back from the next team? They're pretty close. Um, this is where the next echelon starts for me, where it's like Fever, X team, Y team, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then they're obviously the top two big dogs at the very top. But the Fever start this next echelon, this next tier where they are going for a championship. This is this is a championship kind of team. I feel like they're the most ill-equipped championship team in this tier, but what are you going to do? That's bad GMing. That's bad general manager-ing, you know? And the things that worry me the most is like Aaliyah Boston hasn't been healthy this whole season. She's had that knee that's been bothering her all year. She's taken some other hits as well. Obviously, you have the Caitlin Clark piece of this where like she has been very healthy this season, and I hope she continues to remain healthy because it's a better watch when she's healthy. But you're concerned about her playing time, the amount she's playing, the load on her. You're concerned about the Kelsey Mitchell part of this as well, where she's playing a lot. She's having to drag this team around into wins and into games. And I sort of worry about this team hasn't been able to pace itself, you know? And I don't think any of these teams have been, quite frankly, been able to pace themselves, but there have been like, we'll say blessing in disguises, right? Where like Asia Wilson, for example, missed a couple games, I believe near the NBA Cup, yeah, which wasn't positive. You know, they lost that game, and I think it was up and down with wins, but there was a little bit of rest there. Um, Also, going forward, a lot of these teams have a lot of Olympic play, not Olympic, FIBA players that are going to play in the World Cup here. I think a lot of them are traveling on Monday or Tuesday next week. Um, there's also that factor into it. That's Caitlin Clark. That's Leah Boston. So there's gonna be a couple more games on those players that aren't in a Fever jersey will be in a Team USA jersey. So you have to factor that in as well, where it's like there's going to be extra games played for some of these players, and that isn't really great. And I think the most positive thing is that Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell has finally worked out. And I didn't think it was possible. I was so pro let Kelsey Mitchell walk this past offseason, get a better guard in. This combo doesn't work. And they've shut me up. I will admit, they've shut me up. They've played some really great games together, or one player's played one great half, and the other one's played the second half, sort of like trading off a little bit. And they both close games really well. I feel like the synergy with them is amazing. It's the best it's ever been. And that sort of feeds into the other portion of this where like they're not really great with their big depth. It's Aaliyah Boston. It's what's her name? Oh my god, I'm forgetting her name. Michaela Timpson, and then Mo Billings, and then they've picked up Mercedes Russell, um, who Mercedes Russell is just out there to play size and play positionally. That's it. So you really only have like two centers, maybe a center power forward combo, and that worries me. Um, I feel like they do match up well with Atlanta and the Valkyries, but I feel like the other matchup it's such a trade off for the Fever. I don't feel like they have a cohesive roster that is a championship team. Um, and they're just gonna get to the conference finals. They did get to the finals. Not that they did get to the conference finals last year. I think if you can repeat that, that would be a successful season, considering all the things that happened this season and kind of the disjointedness of this season. The next team, the Atlanta Dream. I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about the Atlanta Dream. Obviously, I'll give Angel Reese her flowers. She had an amazing game where she achieved the single most rebounds in a single game. I believe with 24, 25 rebounds. That was against the Sparks a couple days ago. Um, the team has looked really good, and I do have to talk about another team before I talk about them. Where, well, let me continue my spiel about the dream, and then I have to bounce back and forth between two. But I swear it is about the dream. Um, the dream have looked solid. Um, Angels looked great. Uh, Ryan Howard up and down. Um, Alicia Gray amazing. I feel like has gotten into that point of the season where all the other stuff that goes on, she can be a little bit emotional at times. I feel like she gets hit on a lot of hard screens, or she puts herself in positions where she can get injured. That stuff sort of faded away. I feel like they've been really safe about what they've been doing the last couple games. Um, and then, like we talked about at the beginning of the season with this Atlanta team, the Angel Reese move was a championship move. Whatever you think about Angel is what you think about Angel. They were going for it though. They wanted to improve their roster. They improved their roster with an all-star player, with a player that is very good at a couple things and is very good at their position. That's a championship move in my eyes. Um, Going through this season, Bree Jones maybe hasn't been the healthiest, has been on and off. Even herself, she said she's like 80, 90% healthy. She's not really healthy. Um, and there have been some glaring issues with this team. And maybe we were wondering at the trade deadline how they could fix that. Um, some people thought maybe they should go get Kelsey Plum. I was one of those people. That's not really a positional fix, but it was like a star talent fix. That didn't happen, and then they've sort of just gone out throughout the season. Um, and then they've been playing well. And then you look at the team in front of them, the Aces, who also have been doing their own thing. I feel like have at a certain point we're hitting a real groove. They had their roster. They had some really great storylines. I'm talking as an Aces fan, and they looked great. And then verse, I think it was the Toronto Tempo. Las Vegas Aces center Melissa Smith goes down with a non-contact knee injury, and it was reported yesterday. And that's sort of why I kind of waited on this video as well, where she went down with a non-contact injury, didn't know what it was. She hadn't practiced, and then it came out that she's out for the rest of the season. So the Aces are dealt a huge blow. That is just diabolical. It truly is, especially at this point in the season. You are going to have that World Cup break, and you are going to be able to make some calls, maybe get another center. You're going to get an injury exception, of course. But the other wrinkle coming into this between these two teams is that Phoenix Mercury player, DeWanna Bonner, negotiated a buyout with her team. And DeWanna Bonner sort of plays like the 3, 4, 5 sometimes. She's a big player. She's a long player. She's very tall and long. I have my own thoughts about her, which we'll get into in a second. Maybe you already know my thoughts, but her services were out there. And the two teams that were most notably named, I think, were um, the Aces, the Dream, the Lynx, um, maybe the Wings. DeWanna Bonner is on the ring chase. So it had to be a team that's in the playoffs that has a good chance of winning, right? And the two teams that most likely look like were the Aces or the Atlanta Dream. And then she decides on the Atlanta Dream, so the Aces miss out on that. That's the Aces part of this done. Then we'll talk about it more when we get to them. But back to the Dream. The Dream get DeWanna Bonner for basically free. I think they're going to pay her $114 million to play in the playoffs, essentially. She's going to play 8 games, maybe even more. Um, I have my own thoughts about DeWanna Bonner. If you don't want to hear my thoughts about DeWanna Bonner, you want to skip to the Aces part, just skip like 2 minutes ahead, 3 minutes ahead. Um, this DeWanna Bonner stuff is ridiculous, guys. It's absolutely ridiculous. Um, I understand that DeWanna Bonner is a legendary type player. We'll put it that way, right? Type. Think like Jason Kidd, right? NBA example, right? Like sort of legendary-ish, I guess. But in my eyes, like in a lot of people's eyes, like not that great, right? Her prime days are behind her, right? She's on the ring chase. She was going to retire at the end of this year. Um, she probably still is. I don't know, but um, this isn't the first time she's forced her way out of a team. She did it with the Fever. She made some very salacious comments about the Fever and said that the truth will come to light. Her wife, Alyssa Thomas, who is on the Mercury, said she wanted to play for a real championship team. The Mercury have missed the playoffs, so that wasn't a real championship team. That was all said last year. And then DeWanna Bonner's like, oh, well, I'm not going to win a championship here, so buy me out, right? And then I'm going to go join a team and have other people that have worked all season get cut. And the Atlanta Dream did have to cut 2 players to make room for DeWanna Bonner, which a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, this happens all the time in other sports, I just think it's so ridiculous that DeWanna Bonner gets to do this twice, gets to go to 2 teams. They both don't work, and she just leaves. And she's like, yeah, I just want to leave. I'm not happy. That's always the excuse for these players. They're like, I'm just not happy. I want to do this. I want to do that. Well, guess what? That's not how it works. And I'm going to say this, and this is going to sound very mean and very whatever. And I would say this about the Aces too if she joined the Aces. I don't think DeWanna Bonner deserves to win. I don't think you get to push your weight around, go to different teams. It doesn't work out. You get upset about it and you leave and you go to another team. So Atlanta fans, this is not directed at you. This is just directed at sort of WNBA, DeWanna Bonner, and your team. I hope you don't win. Yeah, I hope you don't win because that's just silly. This doesn't happen in other leagues. It does happen, but like it's not so like in your face. And like the WNBA made a post about it, like DeWanna Bonner to Atlanta. What do you guys think? And it's like all the comments are what I'm saying, and I'm not the only one, so I don't feel crazy saying this. But like, I don't feel like it's something that should be allowed. I feel like we need the Bonner rules. Like once you're with a team, you cannot sign with another team this late in the season, with some given exceptions, injuries. Um, whatever the case may be. There needs to be the Bonner rules because this is ridiculous. She's been on 3 teams in the past 2 seasons. Yeah, 3 teams in the past two. If you count the last she's been on 4 teams in the past 4 seasons. In the past 3 seasons. It's deplorable to me, and I don't understand why DeWanna Bonner's doing this. DeWanna Bonner could have just gone off into the sunset. She's one of the leading scorers all time in the league, and she just felt the need to go like ring chase. And I will say this: if they do win a ring, I don't think anybody's gonna respect your ring to Dewana Bonner. Nobody's gonna respect it. You hopped on the success of another team who worked hard all season, who had two players who worked very hard all season, and you took their spots. You're gonna play, and I could get into the nitty gritty of this with Dewana Bonner. I could talk about her stats. She shoots 29% from three this season in the regular season. This season, I could talk about a bunch of things, right? That she's not a winner. She's a loser. She's a quitter. But I'm not going to do that because I want to talk about my aces next. So, yeah, the Atlanta Dream acquired Dewana Bonner. They essentially have Alicia Gray, Ryan Howard, Angel Reese, Dewana Bonner, and whoever else, Jordan Canada, whoever else you want to throw out there. They have a very, very stacked team. They're one of the more stacked teams. And that sort of is favorable to them lining up against the other teams that we've talked about. Probably the Liberty, probably the Wings. The Mystics, I feel like, match up pretty well with the Atlanta Dream. The Fever definitely match up well with the Atlanta Dream, just given their history, given the games they've played this season. I've seen with my own two eyes. And it does favor very well against these other teams that are in front of them. Um, my aces next, yes. Um, I've sort of entered my doomer era. I was in my doomer era last year with this team, and I was like, this team's gonna suck. We're gonna have to blow this team up. It's over. It's so over. We're never gonna win again. And then we won again, or they won again. I hate saying we when I talk about teams. They won again, and it was all happy. It was three championships, right, in the past like 4 seasons. It was great. This is the Alyssa Smith stuff, like I talked about. Absolutely gutted. I had my problems with Alyssa Smith. I felt like she wasn't really the greatest starting center, but she did her work. She came into this season in amazing shape. She played well with Asia Wilson, and that was enough for me. And when you have a team like this that's so stacked, when you have like Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, Asia Wilson, you're gonna have to make some concessions at some other spots, and they're not gonna be like all-star level players. Alyssa Smith is a good player. She was leading the league in effective field goal percentage for a majority of this season. We'll see if that holds true to the end of the season, but yeah, this is terrible. The depth chart for the Aces is, may I say, awful at that spot. If there's an injury that could have happened, it could have happened at any other spot. Truth be told, this is probably the worst thing that could have happened. Um, Other forwards and notable centers on this team. I mean, Asia Wilson can play center. I hate when she plays center personally. I like her as a four. I don't like her as a five. Even though she's done a lot of her best work at the five, nonetheless. For the Aces, their forwards: Kristen Bell, Chania Parker Tyus, Stephanie Talbot, Brianna Turner, and Asia Wilson. And that's the end of the list. Everybody else on this team is a guard or like a wingish player, Yeah, man. I'm very pessimistic, as you might have seen last season when I talked about my team. I think it's over. It's over before it's even started. This is another team that has a lot of players that are going to go play in the FIBA World Cup here. That's going to be a lot more games on their plate. Uh, it's it's going to be. It's just a matter of how bad these losses are going to be. Because I like a lot of these players, right? I like Tanaya Latson. I like Justine Piscott. I like Mai Yamamoto. I like Dana Evans. I don't know if she's ever going to play consistently. I feel like she's in and out of the lineup all the time now. The rest of this team, and I like Parker Tyus too. She's given us some good minutes. But like Kirsten Bell, Jewel Lloyd, Brianna Turner, Stephanie Talbot. Oh God! And you're gonna have to cut this rotation down too. I think the best case scenario is that the Aces play small ball and they just go on a run of runs where they're just hitting shots every series. That's the best case scenario right now for this team. They have like 5 to 7 games left. There's going to be that break, so they're going to maybe be able to find a replacement for Alyssa Smith. I'm not sure who's out there as a free agent right now. I'm not sure if there are any. I'm not sure there's like any like notable ones. I mean, like I'm looking at these, and this might be outdated. I'm looking at the ones from last year who I think are still free agents. Um, Emma Missaman, who was awful for the New York Liberty last year, awful. Uh, you, uh, there's a hope and a dream, maybe. And I literally just saw her on like doing the Amazon, I think like pregame and postgame show. So she's like retired, but like I maybe not really. Tina Charles, maybe you could get maybe Becky can make a call to Tina Charles and be like, hey, we just need you for 8 games. Are you in shape? Are you ready? Another interesting one, actually, that I think would work perfectly. Kalani Brown, that would be good. She was okay for the Mercury last year. She's been free. She's been free agent for a minute now. Maybe that could solve your issues. I like that one. Note that one. Note that one. When that happens, note that down. Um, Let me see here. That's it. I mean, there's Carmen Taylor, who I don't know if she's any good. So yeah, the pipe dream maybe is Tina Charles, but the real one that I've seen on Instagram and she's still working out. She's just like enjoying her time off is Kalani Brown. If I'm the Aces, I go find where Kalani Brown is. I go say, hey, you wanna win a championship? You wanna come play some real minutes? You're gonna start. You're gonna start. Yeah, that's what I would say. But for the Aces, in totality, uh, I had some fears coming into this part of the season where like three of their best players are gonna go play for the Olympic team. Um, there's not gonna be a lot of rest for these players. You're gonna have to rely on the other players that I mentioned: Dana Evans, Tanaya Latson, uh, Parker Tyus, Justine Piscott, Maya Yamamoto. These players that actually produce for this team. They're going to be relied on a lot more going into this final stretch here. And I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. And I'm definitely not comfortable with it now that Melissa Smith is out. I'm not. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm just not. And the back-to-back dream might be dead already, but you never give up hope and you're always cheering your team. So that's it. Moving on here to the final two teams. We'll be very quick because there's nothing really but positive things to say about them. Um, the Golden State Valkyries. I hate to do this in this video because it feels distasteful because I just did a whole rant about my team and how much I love my team and whatever. If I had to pick a team that I want to win the championship, that I'd be happy, like I'd be like, yes, yes, great job, guys. It'd be the Valkyries. The Valkyries are so likable. They have an ex Aces assistant coach as their head coach, Natalie Nasake. Um, they're in the Bay Area. Their fans are amazing. I don't have any problems with their fans. Their fans are great. They always show out. They have one of the best arenas. They have one of the best like home court advantages in the WNBA, and they just play such a different style of basketball. It feels like the 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 bad not the bad boy Pistons, the Pistons that won in the early 2000s that beat Shaq and Kobe. It feels like that Pistons team. It feels like that where like maybe they don't have it going on offense all the time. Maybe there's some like shenanigans going on. Tiffany Hayes is like flopping on the floor, whatever. Maybe they do a stupid foul every now and then. But I genuinely feel like this team is such a different team to what every other team is trying to do. Where every other team is like trying to do offense, offense, offense. Even like the Atlanta Dream, who are very good on defense, a lot of it's offense, offense. Like Angel Reese gets a rebound, she's going back up. That's offense. That's not defense. That's just offense, right? And they're just such a different type of team. And my only worry is that they are going to sputter offensively in the playoffs because the floor gets smaller, teams lock in a lot better. I do have some worry about that, but I feel like their acquisition in Gabby Williams, who's been around the block, is good enough for now. And if they do end up losing in some fashion, who doesn't want to go play for them? That's my question. Who doesn't want to go play for them? So yeah, number 2 seed, Golden State Valkyries, and then lastly, the people at the top, the players at the top, the team at the top, the coach at the top, um, the Minnesota Lynx. Man, oh man, what a season for them! I did not think they would be here. I genuinely did not, but here they are. Nafisa Collier's come back better than I thought she would. Olivia Miles, I sound like a broken record. I didn't think would be this good this early, but she obviously is. Um, Olivia Miles, I'll say this. I don't think I've said this before. I might have, but like Olivia Miles is so good that it's annoying, and I get annoyed watching her when I'm rooting for the other team. I'm like, somebody's got to do something to stop this girl. That's how good she is. They have a great coach. I do have some worry. I think the only thing is like um, their mental fatigue sometimes that you see. But I think by the time they get to the playoffs, they'll be fine. The mental fatigue isn't going to be there. Maybe they'll lose a game because like the other team just hits like whatever many threes and it's like a historic game for the other team. That's the only way to beat this Lynx team. Um, who do I think plays them the best is the only other thing I could talk about. I feel like the Liberty play them well, but not great. The Mystics play them well. The Mystics match up really well. The Aces, and that's it. There's like three to four, only three teams that really match up well with them, and that's like two of them with an asterisk, and one of them is only like because they match up positionally well, in the Mystics. So we'll see, man. We're at this point in the WNBA season where I'm talking about playoffs, and I'm so excited for the playoffs. Even though it feels like my team's out of the running, I'm not going to count them out, but it feels like they're out of the running. It's going to be a great playoffs. It might be the best playoffs in a long time because like you have a potential matchup of Atlanta versus Indiana, which for a lot of reasons is going to be really good. You potentially could have like the Wings going up against the Valkyries, the Liberty and Lynx in the first round would be nuts, and you have like Mystics, Aces, which would be great. There's so many opportunities, and as we get closer, and maybe as we figure out the seeding, I'll make another video. But this will be the last one for a little bit about the WNBA. Maybe we'll talk about the FIBA World Cup on the women's side. Maybe not. We'll see if there's. We'll see. But yeah, I will be heading into some more NBA stuff in the coming weeks, and next month especially. But WNBA stuff will always be around. So if you guys want to continue to watch my content and enjoy my content, you can. The end screen should be playing right now. Check out the playlist on the right if you want to check out my WNBA thoughts throughout this whole season. See the up and down roller coaster that was my opinions. Check out the video on the left. I'm sure you will enjoy that video. It will probably be my prediction for the 2028 Olympic Games roster for the men's and women's team. You can check that out. And if you want to keep up my content, but you don't have the time right now to watch another video, you can click the little icon, bottom middle of the screen. A little subscribe will pop up, and you can subscribe with ease and maybe come back and watch a video sometimes. You know? So yeah, that's it. That's the video. Like and comment as well, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.